The Shropshire Impalement by Erwin Montrose, Chapter 1, The Call.
The phone carved through the pre-dawn like a blade. DCI Stuart Willowshop surfaced from sleep, arm flailing, knuckles catching the cold ceramic of a mug. Tea went everywhere. He didn't bother with the lamp.
Willowshop. Stuart, it's D.S. Davies. We've got a body. St. Agatha's, out by Clun.
St. Agatha's wasn't a place you visited unless you were trying to impress a date or summon a ghost. Abandoned, roof gone, bones of a church jutting into the Shropshire sky.
Another morning. Another mess.
He yanked on trousers, dragged a sweater over a t-shirt, and checked the hall mirror. A face like unshaved gravel, eyes already working the angles.
On my way. Chapter 2, The Scene.
Mist stitched the fields together. By the time Willowshop bumped up the rutted track, the sun was a thin coin behind cloud. Blue lights threw wild color onto the lichen stones.
Sir, Davies said, shoving his hands into his coat. Local farmers spotted him about 5:30.
The tower stood like a broken tooth, and there, pinned to the weather vane's iron cock, hung a man. Dark suit, shirt torn, arms flung wide by the wind. Christ.
Willowshop clocked the details. Tire tracks ghosting the mud, a crisp shoe print with a distinctive split at the toe, a scatter of grit like someone had kicked at the ground while waiting. He looked up again. Angles, force, leverage. This was theater and engineering.
Get scenes and rope. We're not rushing this.
They climbed the tower steps, slick with damp. At the top, the body creaked on the wind. The face was drawn in a final, ugly O, as if the sky had surprised him. In his right hand, clenched white around the wood, a small painted robin.
Souvenir or message.
Weather vane's tapered tip, penetration path clean. Killer either hoisted him post-mortem or engineered a drop. Rope burns on the shaft, check later. He bagged the robin, hands steady. Down below, the vicarage fields sighed with cattle and the smell of wet earth. Death always smelled like something ordinary. Chapter 3, The Victim. At the station, they worked the corpse into a man. Prince and dental hit by early afternoon.
Alistair Finch, Birmingham solicitor, 48. Wife, 2 teenagers, semi-detached respectability.
Run his cases, Willowshop said. Flag property disputes, anything rural. It didn't take long for the first thread to show. Finch had been advising a village consortium trying to block the sale of St. Agatha's land to a developer named Richard Thornton. Moneyed, pushy, reputation for getting what he paid for and paying for whatever he wanted. Thornton wouldn't climb a tower himself, Davies muttered.
Men like Thornton usually rent their violence.
The robin wasn't standard evidence. Folk art, hand-carved, paint a bit too bright. He took it to Bishop's Castle, to Thomas Elkins, a bird-mad carver with hands like twisted roots.
Mine, Elkins said through his magnifier. Sold a crate of little robins at the Clun Fair 10 years ago? Can't say to who?
10 years was near the old story. Emily Carter vanished 20 years back, last seen marching around St. Agatha's with a petition and a temper. Chapter 4, Cold Stones, Warm Lies. Willowshop walked St. Agatha's alone that evening. The ruin folded sound strangely. The wind played organ through empty lancets. Fox print stitched the nave.
Tracks again at the north side. Narrow path into the trees, trodden more than the brambles suggest.
He pushed through to a clearing where ground sank and nettles grew fat. A low ring of stones, a covered well, boards softened by years and damp. He prized a board. The smell rose, old and mineral. Get search, pumps, we do this by the book. They drained it. What stared up was the wrong century, a skull that wasn't last night's news. Bones coiled in silt, a bracelet greened over with time.
Jane Doe for now, but that's a missing girl if I've ever seen one.
Emily Carter had worn a charm bracelet in every photo the local paper had ever printed. Chapter 5, Thornton's Smile. Richard Thornton opened his door with the sort of smile money wears when it thinks it's above consequence. House glassy and tasteful. In that catalog way, wealth buys when it doesn't have imagination. Mr. Thornton, DCI Willowshop, routine questions about St. Agatha's. Of course, dreadful business. I've campaigned to restore that ruin for years. The church has been irresponsible. The office awards photos of handshakes, a single porcelain bird on a shelf. Coincidence or someone who thinks in symbols? You knew Alistair Finch? Briefly, he represented, what did they style themselves? Friends of St. Agatha's, obstinate people. But this, barbaric. I'm not a barbarian, Chief Inspector.
Barbarians don't self-identify.
Where were you between midnight and 5? At home, alone, emails. I'm sure my server logs will show activity. Logs could be spoofed. Alibis can be scaffolded long before a body swings. Chapter 6. The Ledger Bleeds. Thornton's numbers didn't sing, they hissed. A holding company in Jersey, a consultancy paid six-figure planning facilitation fees, a counselor's brother on a silent retainer. Not illegal, not quite, but rotten. Got something odd, 2 large withdrawals the week before Finch died, cash, courier receipts to a P.O. box in Ludlow.
Cash to violence, money to muscle.
They traced the P.O. box to a man named Conrad Vexley, ex-door staff, ex-security for a racing syndicate, ex-pretty much everything. The sort of man who carried a scar like a CV. Bring him in. Don't know any Finch, don't care about churches.
But you picked up envelopes linked to Thornton's firm.
Courier gig, no questions asked. Hands rough, knuckles scarred, left index nail split to the quick, the kind of split you saw on the shoe print at St. Agatha's. Men leave their bodies in their work. Vexley's body was a confession trying not to be. Chapter 7. The Near Miss. The attempt was sloppy but enthusiastic. Willowshop left the station late, rain teasing the road into grease. At the corner by the cattle grid, a van sat dark. Headlights detonated as he drew level.
Too fast, wrong angle.
He dropped a gear, wrenched the wheel. The van surged, clipped his rear quarter. Metal screamed. He fishtailed, caught it, skated into the lay-by. The van overshot, braked hard, reversed, then caught sight of Davies' unmarked sliding in from the far lane. It bolted, tires flensing tarmac. "You all right, sir? Pride bruised, get AMPR, pull every camera from here to Knighton." The number came back dirty, plates cloned, van scrapped 2 months ago, but the CCTV gave them faces in smeared rain. One of them was Vexley. Chapter 8. Old bones, new blood.
Forensics called on Emily. The bracelet was hers. Fractures on the ulna, defensive. Dirt under old nails, chert, the sort around St. Agatha's North Field. A 20-year silence broke like a rotten beam.
We thought she ran. Everyone thought she was difficult. She was just stubborn. She loved that church.
Grief aged people unevenly. Emily's mother looked like time had been unfair without being cruel. Lines written by all the words the village never said out loud.
Do you remember anyone threatening her?
Developers came sniffing even then. Emily made noise. The council didn't like noise. There was a businessman, maybe. There's a picture.
The old photo showed Emily at the church gate, chin up, eyes blazing. Across the lane, a younger Thornton talked to a counselor, shoulders tilted away like guilt taught imposture. Chapter 9. Splinters. The interview room was a shoebox with a mirror and a hum. Willowshop liked it that way. Fewer distractions meant fewer places for lies to hide. Thornton sat with his jacket off, cufflinks placed side by side like trophies. He'd asked for water. He hadn't touched it. Richard Thornton, we're resuming the interview at 1942. Present are DCI Willowshop, D.S. Davies, your solicitor, Ms. Pemberton, and yourself. You're under caution. Understood? Understood. Davies slid a folder onto the table and opened it like a stage curtain. Photos in sleeves, the tower in rain, the weather vane glistening dull, the robin, bagged and tagged. A second sheet, a bank statement with red circles around 2 heavy withdrawals.
You paid Conrad Vexley cash a week before Alistair Finch was killed. You then paid him again 48 hours after. Vexley tried to run me off the road last night. He's been arrested. He's talking.
Conrad does odd jobs for my firm, security, collections. Collections of what exactly? Souls, church spires?
My client denies any involvement in the death of Mr. Finch. He wasn't at St. Agatha's.
Willowshop let silence stretch. People fidget inside silence. Thornton didn't. He stared at the mirror, seeing himself reflected, not what was behind it. Let's talk about Emily Carter. 20 years ago, you pushed a proposal to the council for the church land. Emily organized against it. She vanished. We found her bracelet in the well. The robin in Finch's hand matches carvings Emily hung in the churchyard trees. Whoever staged Finch's death knew that detail. That's a very local memory, Mr. Thornton. You think I killed a girl 2 decades ago and then left a theatrical clue in a lawyer's hand today? Chief Inspector, really?
He's confident. Not clean, confident. Different thing.
Davies pushed forward another photo, a grainy CCTV still from a petrol station, rain smeared across the lens. Vexley stood by the pump, beside him a shorter man in a hood, face turned just enough to show a hawk nose and a crescent scar. That's your fixer, Rick, your yes man. We pulled ANPR from the bypass and CCTV from a farm shop you donate to. The same two bastards in the same van 6 hours before the attempt on the DCI. Conjecture. Pattern. Willowshop slid one last sheet. An email printout from a seized laptop. Thornton's operations manager. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it burned around the edges. If we don't shut down the Friends' action, the diocese will drag their feet another quarter. C hired the lads. They can do a show of force near the site. Phoenix fee approved. Show of force near the site. How near, Richard? On the site? On the tower? I will not be tried in this room. You will be charged in this building.
My client's answer remains no comment.
Willowshop stood, palms flat on the table. The hum of the vent filled the pause. He looked not at Thornton, but at the water glass, droplet clinging to its rim until gravity finally won.
Let him see that inevitability.
You're not the sort who climbs a tower. You're the sort who writes the check and calls it philanthropy. Vexley will put you in the room. Pierce will put cash in your hand. And an old photograph already puts you across the lane from Emily the week she vanished. Old photographs show many things. Nostalgia, bad hair, bad decisions. They do not show murder. They ended the interview. Charge would come later, timed with the CPS like the tide. Outside, Davies pulled in a breath he'd been saving. You think he gave the actual order to hang Finch? I think he doesn't say orders out loud. He says make it go away, and men like Vexley hear specifics. Vexley in the next box was sweating into a paper cup. He'd been tough for an hour, and then the wall cracked. Little things first. A name here, a location there. The lay-by labeled AA on someone's crumpled map. The word Phoenix in messages. Payment code, not mythology.
I didn't stick him up there. I'm not a bloody crane. We hoisted. Yeah, he was already gone. Concussion in the van. He fell quiet quick. The rest was theatre. Said it had to scare the village. Said it had to look like a sign.
Who's he? Rick, Mr. Thornton. Not his voice, his man. Orders come through the man. They wrote it down, each word braced with time and charge sheets. A conspiracy is a puzzle where the edge pieces are money and the picture in the middle is a dead face you can't unsee. Charge him, he said at last. Conspiracy to murder Alistair Finch, perverting the course of justice in the disappearance of Emily Carter, and pin the financial crimes wherever they'll stick. On it. Chapter 10, Ashes of St. Agatha's.
Morning took its time. Over the hills, light seeped like something shy. St. Agatha's ruin wore the hour well. Mist braided through the nave, crows fussed on the tower, and the iron cock turned on a wind that smelled of rain and sheep and wet stone.
He walked the boundary, boots dark with dew, the robin in his pocket weightless and heavy all at once.
We build theaters because we want to be seen. We build graves because we don't.
Word of the charges had run ahead of him. Thornton's gates were shut. The press ferried themselves like gulls to the richest cliff. Vexley had folded. Pierce had cried. The counselor's brother lawyered up and discovered a heart condition by lunchtime.
They held a small service under a hawthorn. No hymns, just names. Emily's mother stood with both hands on the wooden box as if she were steadying a table that had rocked for 20 years. She wanted the church to stay for everyone. Not for hotels, not for photographs, for quiet. Willowshop didn't speak. He wasn't there to be the story. He set the robin in the branches above the box. Moss took it like a promise.
Sir, CPS is confident. We've got the financial trail, the courier chain, the attempt on you, Vexley's statement. It won't be pretty, but it's plenty. Plenty isn't peace.
The diocese suspended the sale with language that sounded like morality and smelled like fear. The council called for an inquiry that would produce a report that would yellow on a shelf. The developer's PR machine ground to a halt. Investors discovered ethics once their money discovered risk.
Justice doesn't fix the hole it crawled out of.
He walked the tower steps one last time. The stone was slick, the air colder up there by a degree that mattered. He placed his palm to the shaft where the iron spun and felt its weary pivot. He looked out. Fields like folded cloth, hedges stitched with blackthorn, the river throwing thin light where it turned.
You're done here, he said, not to the iron, not to the church, but to the idea that terror had the last word.
Paperwork followed as it always does, blank spaces hungry for names and times and dates, the sort of work that saves people without anyone noticing. Finch's kids wrote letters that were angrier than they were grateful. Willowshop understood. He'd have been angry too.
In court, Miss Pemberton picked at everything that wasn't load-bearing. She made witnesses repeat themselves until language snapped brittle. She suggested the robin could have been placed by anyone. She called Vexley a liar who'd say anything to save his skin. She was good. It almost worked.
It didn't. The jury didn't love being treated like furniture. They listened to the money. They listened to the show of force near the site email. They watched the grainy frame of Vexley in the petrol station rain until they could feel the damp in their shoes. They convicted on conspiracy and perverting the course of justice. The judge's words were heavy and exact. Thornton didn't look at anyone when he went down. Men like him don't look. They expect doors to open. Prison doors close with an education. The village healed the way villages do. Slowly, incompletely, with casseroles and gossip and the quiet return of laughter that doesn't need to apologize. St. Agatha's stayed a ruin, but a looked-after one. Volunteers cleared nettles. Someone mended a fence. In winter, a string of tiny lights appeared along the north path. Not garish, just enough to keep the darkness from feeling like a dare. Drink, sir?
One and no speeches.
They sat in a pub that smelled of malt and rain-steamed coats. Davies accused the darts board of cheating. Willowshop watched ice sink in his glass and thought about all the things the job never lets you keep and the few things it lets you save. Outside, the weather turned the iron cock on St. Agatha's, round and round, not a symbol anymore. Just a piece of old metal doing honest work. Some ghosts never leave. Some don't need to. It's enough that they're named.
Last orders, loves.
Willowshop finished his drink, put on his coat, and stepped into a night that felt for once like it belonged to the living. The end. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.